So, hey, everybody, thank you
All right.
so much for being here on a fantastic rainy afternoon in Portland, Oregon. I'll be sending this from the sunny Caribbean. So while you're out enjoying the sunny weather, I'll be on a deck somewhere getting ready to rock and roll. I do want to get started by thanking my sponsors. If you don't mind, do me a favor. If you're watching this on any other platform other than YouTube, you will see the link below. Go to youtube.com/allaccesslive with Kevin Rankin. Hit the subscribe button, and there's a little bell, and you'll be notified about all my upcoming guests. And I've got some killer ones, but I also have about 240 other guests that I think you'll find fascinating. So go back through those archives and look at them. Make sure you subscribe. You can also become a member, and you get some privileges along with that. Some access to certain shows, both video shows and access to live shows when I'm in town. You'll get some gift certificates from some of my sponsors and all sorts of benefits. So it's important that you help support the shows and those companies that sponsor me. You can also hit me up at Venmo. If you decide that you want to support this a little bit more, you can go to @KevyMetal, KEVYMETL, and send me some Venmo. And that helps me up my production quality. So those sponsors, if you will take note, 5-Star Guitars, based in Beaverton, Oregon, one of the greatest guitar shops on the planet. They've been recognized by the NAMM Association as one of the #1 music merchant in North America. If you go to 5starguitars.com/allaccesslive, you'll use a promo code of allaccess15, and you're going to save 15% off everything you see. They've got repairs and they've got lessons and all sorts of guitars, and you can get 15% off and no sales tax since they're based in Oregon. So you're going to save a bunch of money. You'll also save some money if you go to my other sponsors. You go to Rhythm Traders, based here in Portland, Oregon. They're celebrating their 30th anniversary right now, and you can save 10% by going to rhythmtraders.com, and let them know that I sent you. They also have no sales tax. So based in Oregon, if you're outside the area and you want to find great drum gear, they also do lessons. They do repairs. So get a hold of them, rhythmtraders.com. And finally, the greatest record store on the planet, Music Millennium. If you go to musicmillennium.com, you're going to find all sorts of vintage stuff. They have a killer selection of vinyl, all sorts of box sets and hard to find things. So go to musicmillennium.com and let them know that you appreciate their support for All Access Live. Now, there's a gentleman that is both worldly and incredibly talented. I've seen him play before with a internationally renowned band, Pink Martini, but in and of his own right, he's got a fantastic solo career. And beyond that, he's just a really decent human being. And from what I've gotten to know, getting to chat with him prior to this conversation, we have many similar values, and the guy's got a good sense of humor. And I think if you're looking for light right now in a kind of dark time, then stay tuned and catch this all the way through to the beginning and to the end. If you want to check out more about him, go to martinzarzar.com, and I'll have that link below. Now, with no further ado, please let me welcome from his humble, bisected now abode in Southwest Portland. I've got Martin ZARZAR on the phone, and I really appreciate you being here. How you doing?
Well, Kevin, thanks for having me. Good
I'm
to
glad
see
to see. Yeah, man. This is your perspective. I noticed is it's a little bit like a voyeuristic security camera right here. So this is yeah, and this is good, man.
I'm a fan of MC Escher. This is very Escherian.
It is, yeah. So Escher's phenomenal. Do you have any Escher tattoos?
I am an Escher tattoo.
Yeah, I love his work too.
That's a great idea, though. I haven't seen anybody with an Escher tattoo, and if I were to get a tattoo, that would probably be a good place to start. I don't have any tattoos at the moment.
Jim Walker in town, actually, if you know Jim at all, he's an incredible singer-songwriter. He's got a studio in Southeast Portland. He's got some Escher tattoos, but they are just figures from the Escher works, and so they don't have the construction, the sort of puzzling, architectural stuff, but it's just some of the characters. Right. They look very demonic. They're sketchy and scary looking, but
some of them are, yeah.
But I love his work too. So when we were just chatting, getting ready for this thing, your door was getting knocked on left and right. You've got You've got an opportunity coming up where you're building your studio onto your home, right? So
Yeah.
you're going to rent some of that house.
I've got paint on my clothes. I've been
Nice.
painting.
I love that. No, that's good.
I'm in full in remodeling mode right now. Yeah. So yeah, the thing is, I live half of the time in Europe now and half of
Okay.
the time here, and so I don't need all the space that I used to need. So I'm dividing the house into, you know, 2 sections and building a recording studio in the back, and so it's a time of change. As always, I mean, it's always change is the only constant, as they say.
A lot of people don't adapt well to change. It sounds like you've figured that thing out pretty well. But for the studio, is this primarily for your recording, or are you going to be doing a recording of other artists as well?
I do a little of both. I've been
Okay.
doing production with other artists for many years. So I've produced several records and co-written a lot of things.
Okay.
But mostly, you know, I most of the time record my own stuff. Mostly I use it for my own work.
Okay.
But yeah, and I'd say 80-20, you know.
And then when you go to Europe, where is your residence over there?
It's in Madrid right now.
Oh, it is. Okay.
Mhm.
When are you going to be in Madrid next?
Probably late May.
Okay. I'm just going to miss
Because I
you.
have a project coming up on the East Coast in May. It's a big thing with the Smithsonian. So I've
Beautiful.
got to be prepared for that. I have a lot of music to write for that. And after that, I'll probably be heading back.
So you're doing a complimentary thing for the Smithsonian, writing music for this, and
I'm not sure exactly the chain of command there, but
okay.
I know that it's through that institution, and it's something to do with paintings and dance and immigration.
Okay.
It's about the struggles of immigrants, which we're now, you know, the world is witnessing, and refugees, and the world is witnessing, you know,
Yeah.
the revolution is being televised.
Yes, it is. Well,
Um,
before we get into that kind of stuff, you mentioned that consolidation of all these different cultural connections with Smithsonian. Are you, outside of painting your construction there, are you a painter as well?
I take the pencil sometimes and I
Okay.
draw some stuff.
Okay.
I am a doodler.
All right.
I'm a professional doodler, but I don't I don't have any training as a visual artist. I mean, I try to draw some stuff once in a while. On my webpage, actually, you'll see that I put together drawings for every lyrics page on my webpage, and all those drawings are my drawings.
Really?
And
Okay.
I just do it digitally. I just do digital drawing because I think it's kind of fun.
Sure. With a
But
tablet?
you know, it's creative. I don't know if it has any value, but it's fun to look at. So you're welcome to check it out. martinzarzar.com.
Yeah, man. I'll have that link down below here in a second. You know, but yeah, it's funny that the digital, you called it doodling. Are you hip to cryptocurrency at all? And do you follow any of that?
Yes. Yeah, I think it's a very interesting development. I think blockchain technology is something I've been hearing about from some good friends for several years. And I think it's really fascinating, you know, just to see how the technosphere evolves and interfaces with our biology and our life expectations. I think it's really interesting. You know, I don't know where it's headed, but I know
Sure.
it's not going away, and we're gonna have to learn to work with it.
Well, I mean, I asked because NFTs have become sort of a buzzword right now, and I,
Right.
I've been listening to podcasts about artists, both visual artists and musician
Mhm.
artists and musical artists, and where that connection with their fans can sort of be enhanced, to have fans or supporters of these artists really expand both the artist's ability to make money and to have sort of a financial future, but also be a part of that, so that there's
Mhm.
value in the NFTs by like close trading with those things. And
Yeah.
it's funny because some people are so, I talked about change being so scary for people. And half of my community said, it's a bunch of garbage, and ether based currency just seems so silly. But
Well, I mean, it's a very it's true. It is largely a bunch of garbage,
sure.
but not all. And that could be true of many things in life. You know, And by garbage, I mean, one man's trash is another man's treasure, as they
Sure.
say. So, you know, we might think it's garbage and somebody else might think it's great. You know, I may think my music's cool and someone else might think it's garbage. So it's
Yeah.
somewhat subjective, right? But I think that there are a lot of scams,
Yeah.
and there are also some things of value in terms of community, and there is a potential for decentralization, and I think that's a good thing in some ways.
Sure.
I mean, I think as humans, we tend to want to simplify things partially because change is hard and we want to categorize things and be done with it and move on, right? Because it's
Yeah.
just, hard work for our minds to adapt. Um, but that's not how life is, you know. Things don't just neatly fall into categories like that. So um, decentralization is great in some areas and it's terrible in other areas.
Sure.
So I think if we can harness the good parts of it, you know, I mean, my value system tends toward what's, you know, humanitarian, what is
Yeah.
what is good for the average person, what is, you know, what's forward looking in that way. So I think there's a lot of potential through blockchain for that. But you know, I don't want to give too much of my perspective on that because I don't know enough about it. You know, I don't want
Well,
to mislead people. So I
who
think it's
does?
cool. I think it's cool, but you have to be careful because there's a lot of, like anything new, and like all human endeavors, there's always the potential for corruption, and people are going to try to take advantage of each other.
Sure.
But
Yeah.
there's also something really great, like the internet. You know, like
Yeah.
people were skeptical of the internet,
Right. Yeah.
and here
Nobody,
we are, right?
people didn't want to be putting their credit cards down and buying anything online. And now people rarely even go out and, shop in person anymore. But, I think the idea of, you talked about one person's trash being another person's treasure. Art is subjective like that anyway, right? So somebody might go and they might compare Michelangelo, Picasso, Andy Warhol, and, they see vastly different types of works and see that maybe the level of detail that goes into Michelangelo or Da Vinci is better than say a Picasso, right? But it's more about how that piece makes you feel. I mean, of course the value and so much of that work is perceived value, and I think that term, that concept is a lot like NFTs, that somebody's a piece of art that went along with, say, a Martin ZARZAR album, if it's rare and limited, and maybe 1,000 people that had that limited number of art piece could have that and be able to trade that with all the millions of Martin ZARZAR fans out there, the value would increase, right?
Kevin, I wish I mean, of course I have to pay my bills and stuff, and I like to monetize what I can, but I wish that I could just give everything away for free.
Yeah.
Like if I had a choice, I would give all my best ideas away for free. I'd give all my best music away for free, because I think that, the reward is in the process. And also I don't do it for the money.
Sure.
I just happen to have bills that I need to pay.
Yeah.
But that's not why I do what I do. You know what I
Oh,
mean? So it's an
yeah.
interesting balance of priorities that we have to have as artists, because we also have to eat, and if I could put NFTs to work in my favor, I would. I don't know how to do it yet.
Yeah.
But if you know a guy, or a
Yeah.
gal,
Well, my dad's a visual artist, right? He's been a painter and a sculptor and a printmaker for his entire life. He taught in high school for a long time and college, and took an early retirement because his passion was to create, and he wasn't getting that passion. He liked being able to influence, kids, but at the end of the day, the administration was what drove him out of teaching, and his technical prowess was not there, and his marketing prowess was not there. He just was a creator, and he beats himself up all the time about not being the marketing guy, when a lot of his contemporaries in Montana were becoming multi-millionaires creating Western art. He's an abstract art, an abstract expressionist, right? So his work is not fitting the template that Western art would be. And I was so proud of him for it. The fact that he left his secure job with a pension in order to go off and paint and live in the woods. So we grew up in the mountains, and it took me a while to understand the value of that until I got to be, a musician.
And right, and it made you partly who you are, right? And I think, who knows, maybe he was thinking ahead of, how does this pave the way for my children to be, more complete human beings.
Sure.
So
Fulfillment.
some things, I'm a firm believer that, not to interrupt, I don't know if you were still going, but you inspired me to say that I, I, I know a lot of things are transacted in monetary value, but I still feel like the most important things in life are not.
Yeah.
And we don't often realize, and we don't often remember this. We think that, okay, yeah, we say things like, oh yeah, everything has a price. It's not true at all. Some things are there can be attempts to have pseudo platforms for these things, but ultimately, what are the things that we value most in life? Love, friendship, health.
Yeah.
There have been attempts to monetize these things, but they've largely failed.
Yeah.
And I just think, and not just that, but so many other things. Like there's more that we don't catalog always than what we do catalog, and
Sure.
and that's, to me, that's why art is so interesting, because in art we kind of take everything that falls through the cracks of what's already organized in society, and we look at that and we try to reckon with that and see, wait, and hold up a sign saying, hey, have you people considered this? Like, everyone's looking this way, but there's something coming the other way that we haven't thought about yet. And so art poses those questions, and musicians and artists always are. And I feel like that's the biggest part of existence, which is not on our radar. Our radar is a very narrow radar.
Yeah, but in our society, especially right here, you talked about the real things that we put value on, and love and relationships, and for me, experiences are something I value so much. Studying a little bit about your background, having such a worldly perspective where you've lived in a lot of places and you've traveled a lot of places, it's so important, I feel like, to get perspective on what real value is in terms of life. Some people get so head down in financial gain that they can chase the dollar their entire life. And you see guys that make millions and billions of dollars and they're miserable, right? I think about young musicians or young, I
would say it depends on how they make them, right? Some people are very fulfilled while being rich, but it depends on how you get there. I think if you get there by stepping on other people, well, maybe there's something wrong with you to begin with. But I wouldn't find that very fulfilling.
I think what I've told I have two sons. I have a 20 and a 22-year-old, and my 22-year-old is very driven, financially motivated for sure. He's got a lot of aspirations, but I told him, don't get so lost in chasing the dollar that you lose this opportunity. 22 is a brilliant opportunity, to look at the world with less obligations. You've got an opportunity to travel and meet people and have all these experiences that you have less consequences at this point. And at the end of the day, you don't take a lot of that stuff with you. If you're on your deathbed and you're thinking about the things that really were of value to you, the Rolex you bought is not something that you're going to treasure as you're passing away, but you're definitely going to remember those relationships, those experiences you had with people that were meaningful, and thankfully, I might be a day or two away from my deathbed, but I know that I do live my life that way, that I value so much meeting people like you that have had those experiences. When I watch a lot of your social media engagement, it's really driven towards the betterment of the greater good, and
I know I piss people off sometimes.
Okay, it's okay to be controversial if you can inspire people to think. You had a great short yesterday, right, where you were saying, hey Putin, listen, daddy's here to give you a hug. Let's hug this out. And Putin's probably not going to listen to that and go, you know what, Martin's probably right. But
no, of course not.
And you and I both know too, man, that there are some people that their minds will never get changed, no matter how much logic or rationality that you spit, in objection to their opinion. But one thing you mentioned to me earlier was trying to look at people's perspective, look at their backgrounds. And that is a disarming thing. If you have a conversation with someone, to maybe see where they got their opinion, even if it's completely contrary to what you might believe in. Right. So where
Right.
did that come from for you?
Well, one of the things, I mean, actually, to be totally candid, um, that came from reading, from knowing people, from traveling. That was my firsthand experience of that. But um, my theoretical framework for approaching things that way came from reading the Socratic dialogues,
Yeah.
in which there's an attempt to, although of course Socrates gets killed in the end, but but nonetheless,
Yeah. Well,
barring that very telling thing, nobody likes to be shown that they're wrong.
right.
But I think we often confuse that. I think in life we often confuse debate with conversation,
Yeah.
and they are very different things. Um, and it's a very unfortunate thing that we've, especially I think because of the divorcement of physical reality from interactions, we're leaning more and more toward debate instead of conversation. And I think what we really need is conversation, because in a conversation you get to know the other person a little bit, and they get to know you, and you get to be complicit in a learning process.
Yeah.
Whereas in a debate, you're just trying to show the audience that you're right and the other person's wrong, and that is very disheartening to the other party.
Yeah.
So you just need a lot of patience. And even though I've sometimes, like with this Putin, hugging Putin thing,
Yeah.
I know there's no hope of conversation, so I just went for comedy.
Yeah.
But you have to know what realm you're in and what your goal is. If your goal is to create some learning, you have to be willing to learn too. You can't be a teacher without being a student at the same time. I've also learned by teaching, and so yeah, all those things have sort of come together as I've grown. Hopefully I'm on the right track. I may be wrong. Maybe everything I said right now is wrong. And that's the other thing. You got to be open to that. You have to be
Sure.
open to having your mind changed, but not without evidence, not without a good reason. So I think, just having patience for the process and knowing that we're all still learning, I think is fundamental to a better understanding. And yeah, traveling is huge.
Oh, that perspective gain, right? I would imagine if you're like me, you may have conversations with people locally that have an opinion about things that are happening politically in the United States, or they might have an opinion about how the pandemic was handled, or the invasion of Ukraine, or whatever. That the world is flat. You have these conversations with people, and you can tell the people that have not left, not even their country, but maybe not even their state, not even their city. And I grew up in Montana, right? So when I go back to my hometown, the sleepy little cowboy town that's now kind of a gentrified, super Hollywood town.
Is that right?
Yeah, there. I think you've played Bozeman before, in your passings, I'm sure.
I may have. I don't recall.
Yeah, you've done a lot of gigs. I get it, man. People usually remember it because it's beautiful. A lot of people decide this is exactly where I want to live the rest of my life. And then they get through winters and it's 40 below and they say, okay, this will be a nice summer home. But, when I go back there, I see opinions based on a lot of people that have been there forever. Like I said, it's a cowboy town. It's primarily conservative. Montana is in general. But I can have conversations with people that grew up there, and it's not as divisive. If we have difference of opinions, they're not so angry and so steadfast in their beliefs that they want to fight me or kill me, right? Because I have a different belief. It's hard for me though to go into different places where they're so determined to support a belief system they've had for so long that they're not willing to look at other perspectives like that. And
Yeah.
and a lot of that, there's education, there's a willingness. So have you always been this willing to at least listen to other perspectives and kind of learn from somebody
Yeah.
else's point of view?
I think I always have. I don't know why. I think just because I'm curious. I've always
Yeah.
been a curious person. And so the last thing I want to do is to shut down a person's perspective just because I might think they're wrong,
Yeah.
because I'm curious as to why they have that perspective, you know?
Right.
Um, I might I might push back, but I
Yeah.
don't close the channel, because I think everyone knows something that you don't,
Yeah.
first of all. You know, everyone's a teacher in some way.
Sure.
Um, Now everyone's also wrong about a lot of things,
Oh,
about
yeah.
most things, I would say, but all that applies to all of us. So you know, those that keeps the channel open for me, and I've always felt that way. I don't know when that started. I've always felt that way. I think I've gathered the tools to manage it, hopefully better, but I think I've always had that fundamental curiosity about why people think the way they think. And I think I would almost rather be in a conversation with someone who disagrees with my views because they've arrived at their own views by a, a thoughtful process, than with someone who agrees with me just because it's a fad.
Yeah.
And because there's almost no hope there, you know.
Yeah.
So fads are the worst thing. Well, I mean, but you know, there are conservatives, and I don't even like the word conservative, honestly,
Sure.
because it's very misleading. But um, people who might not agree with some of my views that have good reason for theirs.
Sure.
And then we can have a conversation, because these are people who like to talk about stuff, you know,
Based on
and
their
like to
experience.
consider other people's, yeah. And maybe they've
Yeah.
just lived in a particular part of the world that makes that very likely to happen,
Yeah.
that they hold those views. And it may, you know, so much in life is just luck, you know, where you're born, you know, even your genetic makeup, your education, all of it is pretty much, it's all luck. I mean, I could be a cricket, you know.
Right.
it,
Yeah.
there's there's
Maybe.
like there's no rhyme or reason to it, and to think otherwise is it, I think is just hubris, you know. And to prioritize things, and to think that one way of, you know, one kind of creature is, you know, better than another. It's just silly,
Uh,
you know. We're all just passing through.
yeah. The better conversation. Because I think about that a lot in music or arts or anything else. I'm not a fan of award shows, or you know, I know that you've received a lot of awards. You know, I was on the board of directors for Oregon Music Hall of Fame. Of course, early inductee was Pink Martini, one of your groups, and I was never interested in being part of the voting committee for those things, because to me, saying that one band is more worthy or better than another is really, I feel, disrespectful to a lot of artists that are out there that are certainly deserving of accolades. But they had a scholarship fund that was set up for musicians that it would help supplement a career in music. And so the events were oftentimes set up with auctions, you know, where the money would go towards music scholarships. I love that part, you know, encouraging people to
Mhm.
go out and find their expression. But
Yeah.
you know, seeing that one person would be inducted, I'd get grief from people that knew I was on the board. They would say, "What about me?" You know, or "What about so and
Right,
so?" And
right.
I thought,
Well, that's the thing is, you know, you can't, when you have a contest, you're going to have winners and losers.
"Sure, yeah,
Now, I don't know what the relationship is between, so I want to keep a humble perspective even about that. I don't know what the relationship is, given that we are a species that seems to like collaboration as much as competition. We seem to like both.
hmm
I'm not saying we should encourage one disproportionately, but the way society is now, it might be that through competition, the funds for scholarship are generated. And so, you know what I mean? I'm not totally against it. I don't want to encourage it if it seems out of place.
sure,
But I also don't want to say that there is no merit to it, that there is no you know, larger benefit to it. So it's hard for me to wrap my mind around that. It's a pretty vast topic
it is,
of
yeah."
discussion. So I don't know if it's better to have it or not. I honestly don't know. But
Well,
I do feel what you're saying um, about, you know, everybody, you know, having people left out, and the way history is written, because it's sort of what it comes down to, is like, who prioritizes the narrative, who has the right to say that these events were the important ones and not the others, and these
Right.
people were the important ones and not the others. That's a complete fiction. That's not how
Yeah.
life is.
Right.
Some of the most crucial moments in my life were words from complete strangers, or situations I would have rather not been in, that shaped me and made me a better person. So
Can you
nobody gets to, yeah,
can you remember
people
any of
don't,
those?
gosh, yeah, I mean, so many, geez.
Tell me about a
Uh,
situation that maybe was not the place that you really wanted to be in, but it formed a change in your life, maybe for the
I
better.
mean, I was in a crash landing.
Really?
That's one.
You had a plane crash.
I was a kid. Yeah, I was traveling by myself too.
Oh my gosh. How old were you?
Yeah, I was 9.
Okay. And where were you living at the time?
I was living between France and Lima.
Okay. And parents were
So my mom was in France, and the rest
okay.
of my family was in Peru, and I was traveling back
Okay.
from France to Peru.
Tell me about that experience. What happened?
It, you know, it was very frightening.
Yeah, I'm sure
But
you
at
can
the
remember a
same
lot.
time, you know, and then we were stranded for a while in
In the,
Guyana, in French Guyana, in Cayenne.
that was where the plane went down.
Hmm. Hmm.
Okay.
It was a large plane, very
Okay.
large plane. Nobody died. I think some people were hurt.
Wow.
Nobody, as far as I know, nobody died.
That's
Um,
miraculous.
yeah, it was. I mean, I don't know how they pulled this off, but we we scraped on the ground. We landed with no landing gear, just kind of
Right. Oh, wow.
scraping on the ground. But the plane held together, and we got out. Um, and I remember seeing sparks and seeing, it looked like the airplane was going to fall apart any second, but it didn't.
And you said you were
And then we
stranded there
waited
for a
for,
while?
yeah, yeah. And so a lot of the things that you take for granted, um, you don't have suddenly, you know, you don't have a place to sleep. You don't have, uh, luckily the weather in Guyana, in French Guyana, is warm. So we weren't cold.
Sure.
Um,
So,
food and supplies and things like that. Just, we were inside, but there was just suddenly no comforts,
yeah,
for a few
sure.
days until we get another plane to get us out of there.
And
Um,
just, I mean, even getting back on a plane must have been kind of scary, right? Just thinking, I mean, at 9,
yeah,
you're not
I actually
realizing,
don't know how long we were there because my memory is a little fuzzy by
sure.
now, so I don't know how long it was, but suddenly it felt like my world was just completely falling apart, and I
Yeah.
I was alone, and 9-year-old kid. And now, if you've had that experience, um, it's it sucks, but it helps you understand what people go through in really dire straits.
Sure.
What refugees go through,
Mm,
what people who lose everything suddenly go through, even if it's just for a couple of days and you don't know what's going to happen. It's just that uncertainty, the level of fear that produces in a person. And it doesn't matter how prepared you think you are and how cool you
sure.
think you are,
Well, I
because
mean,
life can change suddenly. And so a little bit of humanity goes a long way in those situations. The other thing, and also, teaches you to be patient and to be grateful for what you do have.
yeah,
Um, and
gratitude.
also just sudden words from strangers. I've met people on the airplane that have turned me on to some of the best books that I've ever read. Um, giving me gems of wisdom.
Mm,
People passing by on the street, and just you got to keep your ears open. I
I
was also
love that.
in a cast. I couldn't walk for a couple of years when I was a kid, so I learned
Wow.
to live in a disabled. I was
Sure.
completely disabled, and I learned to live like that, and to also appreciate the things that you do have, and to see how important solidarity is. And you know uh,
So
so yeah.
let's talk about that for a second, because you mentioned, living, growing up as a younger human with a cast on for a couple of years, you've got the physical disability. There's always going to be at that age, especially by your peers. There's going to be some, some bullies. There are going to be people that make comments
Oh,
about you as if,
how
it's
did you
your
know?
fault. Oh, I mean, that forms a lot in that age. I don't know how old you were. How old were you when you had the cast on?
I was between 6 and 8. I couldn't walk, so I had a brace for a while, and then I had a cast for a little over a year.
Okay.
So the brace I couldn't. It wasn't doing much. So they changed it to a cast, and it was a cast from here all the way down to my ankles.
Oh my gosh.
So it was,
Wow. A
yeah,
body
it was
cast.
yeah, pretty much. I could move
Wow.
my arms.
Oh,
Um,
yeah. Yeah. I
and
mean,
so yeah,
uh,
I'm okay now.
of
It worked,
course. Okay. And so you
But
had,
the experience, actually, the most haunting experience of that time, and I don't want to bring viewers down,
well, okay.
but actually, it's a
I
very
feel like
interesting
it's the
story.
opposite.
So the most haunting experience, and I think the most interesting and the biggest learning uh, was the solidarity was really the greatest part of the takeaway from that. But I think the most shocking part that also again helped me see the full range of people's experience and not to take things for granted, um, was being at the hospital when they were doing the tests to figure out what was wrong with me. I was in the children's hospital, and it was a public children's hospital in Peru.
Okay.
So it's it's not a place of wealth, and
Sure.
kids are there, and some of them are very, very sick. Um, and we had a big room where we all shared. It was a shared space with lots of beds, and each kid had a different thing going on. And some of them would not come back the next day. Um, it was very sad. It was, and kids go through so much
Yeah.
sometimes, and all kinds of. At any age, you can go through so much stuff.
Right.
And I remember they used to make us pray the rosary every night, and it was almost macabre. I mean, it was not a relief. That was not a fun part of it, because it all seemed so dreadful.
Right.
And then
Preparing
and
you
then
for even more tragic things to come almost, right?
yeah, I mean, I think it was done with a with good intent, but it didn't come across in a very lighthearted.
You're
It was rough. It was like adding insult to injury, to be honest.
Ah,
But then the kids were kids can be really strong, but they can also be uh, they can express their strength in cruel ways, because they're
yeah.
trying to face things they're very, very big and very
Yeah.
traumatic for a child. So sometimes they become almost, they overcompensate.
Yeah.
So the kids, anytime anybody would go into the surgery area, they would come and take the kid away. Some of the kids would start chanting, "To the cauldron, to the
Oh
cauldron."
my God.
And
Oh
I was
no.
like, so horrific. No,
Oh,
I know, I know. And well, and I don't know. And of course, when I was taken in, they did the same thing, and it's just what it is. But it's just to see human nature at that very basic level is very enlightening.
Lord of the
Um,
Flies. That's what it
yeah, and
sounds.
also there's a lot of kindness. I mean, they also told each other jokes, and kind of kept each other, the full range,
Yeah,
But I think it's one, the some kids are more bullies than others. And I was also bullied when I had the cast on.
I'm
But most
sure.
kids were really helpful and really nice. And there were a few who were bullies. And it's always like that. It seems like that's how society is. Most people are very kind. And then there are a few bullies.
Yeah.
And you
I
see that represented, especially in power structures and
right.
hierarchies.
Oh,
So,
sure.
you know,
You got children of your own.
I have a son. He's 5
Yeah.
years old.
He's amazing. Watching like the videos, you got like him involved in the vids. And was he a big part of your inspiration for your children's album that came out a couple years ago?
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, yeah. I mean, I basically made it for him. You know,
Nice. God,
he's on one of the tracks.
really?
Yeah, he sings one of the songs.
Oh
Yeah.
man, that I so with those
I mean,
experiences,
he sings along with me.
Okay, yeah, he doesn't get the lead yet. He's got to work his way up to that. But
Oh no, he totally could sing the lead.
yeah,
He actually is a very good singer, but he wasn't even two at the time.
oh my gosh,
So that
man,
was, yeah.
that the formative years that you had, where you spent time in the hospital, you spent time in that cast, you overcame a plane crash, um, all of those things that sort of formed the adversity that you overcame. I would imagine that becoming a dad, you had sort of an arsenal of tools, right? That you put together that said, all right, this is what I want to help him avoid. And I mean, there's certain things that you want your kids to go through because, it prepares them for the reality of life. I would imagine you probably didn't want your son going through a plane crash or through a body cast for a couple of years.
You know, I think if he comes out okay, he should go through that and more. I don't think there's light without darkness, you
Yeah.
know. I
Uh,
think, and I think the stars look brighter surrounded by black. You know,
on the other side of adversity, for sure, then it's an opportunity for you to look back and reflect.
but of
And
course I don't wish anybody any harm, especially not
right,
my son.
sure,
But I don't think I was harmed by these things. That's the thing. I don't think I was harmed. Um, and and I think it's more harmful to want to escape our physical frailty,
sure.
and to pretend that we're, somehow invulnerable, or sheltered beyond measure.
It does. It makes you ill prepared for when times get tough, for sure.
Yeah, and they will get tough, and
Of course.
nobody gets out of this alive. Like you
Yeah.
said, you don't know if this is your last couple of days or hours, or we never know. And so it teaches us to live each moment to the fullest too, and to appreciate the everything that happens. Like there is no detail in life not worth
Right.
contemplating.
Sure.
Being alive is such an incredible thing.
Yeah. What a
It's
gift.
such absolutely incredible. If only we could respect other people's lives
Yeah.
in
Right.
the same way as we respect our own,
You,
then I think we'd be okay collectively.
do you feel like, I have that conversation with my older son a lot. Right now is at the belief that, there are fewer kind people and more, sort of devious folks out there. And yeah, I feel bad for him in that respect, right? That his perspective has been gained from situations that gave him that perspective. Um, I truly want to believe, right, that humans are innately good, and from their circumstances, oftentimes that's where things, take a turn, and and I guess the concept of good versus bad is probably a bad way to look at it. I think, some people end up being more selfish or more devious based on their experiences. When you are raising your son and you're talking to him about people in general, one of the things I noticed you mentioned is actively listening. You'll be on a plane or you'll be passing someone on the street. They'll mention a book or a comment to you that stays with you for a while. And I love that, because a lot of people tend to put their head down. The smiles don't, come easy. Handshakes are kind of no longer there right now during a pandemic. It was easy for a lot of people to take that 6 foot distance because they'd rather not be close to someone. It's a comfort, for them. For me, I love the opportunity to talk to strangers, and I become, connected to people all over the world, and I love it. It's my favorite part of touring, to be honest with you. How are you with your son? Do you encourage him to be the first to smile or open a door or shake a hand?
Honestly, I would. In the pandemic, it's been a little mixed bag
Yeah.
because um, you know, not knowing what a virus can do,
Right.
especially to a kid, and he hasn't been vaccinated yet because he
Okay.
just turned 5.
Okay.
And so, I think I may have been very, maybe even too protective during that time, but only for that reason, only
Sure.
for that reason, because it's such an unknown. And I understand the distancing. I don't disagree with it. I
Sure.
don't disagree with the vaccinations and the health, the prevention measures, because I mean, the history of viruses, it's I mean, it's just, you don't know what you're getting into,
Sure.
and it's better safe than sorry if it's for a short term, you know.
Yeah, of course.
For a long term, we might have to figure it out and learn to live with it. But if we can save a lot of people's lives by being a little careful. But I haven't stopped talking to people. I just put my mask on and talk with people. You know, we still talk. I may not get as close, but the
Sure.
conversations still happen. And uh, luckily, we have the internet. We can still or phone communications, but that doesn't invite as many random occurrences. It's more directed. So I think I try to. My son's very sociable.
Is
He's
he?
very social. He's got good social skills, and he loves to see what people are all about. I've seen him interact with groups of people, and he's really interested. Hey, who's there?
Oh, this is Edgar Allan Pug. Sorry,
Edgar Allan Poe. What a great name.
yeah, he knows when I'm getting ready to go tour, and he saw that I've got my suitcases out and my drum stuff, and yeah, he has his new purple mohawk back again. So this is his going away thing.
Uh,
It stresses him out a lot when I
I
go.
bet.
During
I
the
bet.
pandemic, he and I are out in the woods every day, and um, so it's probably worse on me than it is for him. But
Hmm.
when he comes in and knows that I'm doing podcasts, he wants to be part of it. So Edgar,
Every
this is
time, every time you go touring, he says nevermore.
that's right. Yeah, he tries,
Nevermore.
he hides in my suitcase sometimes. It's pretty funny. He tries to get in there when I'm packing, and he'll just burrow his way in, hoping that I don't notice. But that's better than
No.
what he used to do. He used to pee on my drum bag, my stick bag before I leave. Just he's like marking his territory, But
Yeah.
the man, on a really light note, talking about this connection, it's a beautiful thing to have an opportunity to pass these feelings on to our kids. I really value how well my kids listen to just experiences. For a long time, and I don't know if you're like me, I didn't want to hear what my parents had to say. They were very wise people, but I just felt like, yeah, I just got to figure it out on my own. But when there's so much uncertainty, both in the pandemic and what's happened in the world in the last few years, and because I don't have those answers, but we are curious together. We talk about uh, what would be the best thing for us. Do we completely shut down travel? For ourselves, we were really, really cognizant about distancing at first. For that first year and a half, we were here in the house. I was in the woods every day with my dog. The boys and I would often go with me. We wouldn't have friends over, and so I had a son graduate high school and start college, virtually. And he just said, this is not for me at this point. I want class in session. And I was really grateful for them to talk to me about it and say, you know what, man, there's an entire life to go back and do that if that's what you want to choose. I want them to have experiences. I want them to be able to
Mhm.
enjoy life, And so,
Well, most of your education happens really early in childhood.
mhm.
The rest is icing on the cake, as they say. But
Those
so I
formative
think
years,
it's a reflection on you too. It's a reflection on you. You probably raise them with love and understanding, and so it just reflects on them.
I would have said
Yeah.
that about the education being an early phase thing, except for me. I felt like I learned more in the last 2 years about myself and about the world than entire,
Sure, that can happen as well. I don't doubt that.
it
Yeah.
was necessary. It was stuff that, and the willingness,
Hmm.
you talked about open ears, open eyes. I recognized that there was a lot of, um, boy, I was such a talker.
Well, yeah, you learn forever. You never
Sure.
stop learning. Hopefully, so yeah. But I think just that someone's temperament, whether they can listen or not, I think it can be learned later, but it's certainly learned easier earlier. So you probably, I'm feeling you did a good job.
Well, humility was something that I felt humble for a long time, but I learned a different element of that. And it seems like it's something that you've got a great grasp on too. I remember meeting you for the first time at Lisa Schroeder's restaurant and one of their events. And Rob,
Some of my favorite people. Love those
unbelievable.
guys.
I definitely like, they are the most incredible people on the planet. And Rob Sample was like, you have to meet this guy, Martin. And of course, I'd known you through Pink Martini and knew several members past and present. And I've worked with Storm for quite a while. I'm sure that you had some experiences with Storm along the way, and lots of time with Thomas and China, and the humility part of it. I mean, you're a very accomplished musician. You're a Berkeley grad, right? So I've got great friends that came from Berkeley. I also had old students and friends that went there that said, we cannot break through this clique. We got here and we realized that in order to get through some of the ensembles that we wanted to get into, or the instructors we wanted to get, we're not in the right cool group. That was really a challenge, because there was a pecking order that they mentioned. Did you find that when you went to school there?
Oh yeah, I mean it happens everywhere. People click and don't click, and they guard their little mounds of soil, like molehills.
Yeah,
make molehills into mountains.
Right.
I don't know if I'm using the right expression, but it's just everyone wants to be a king of their own little hill, I guess, and that happens everywhere.
Sure.
But there was a lot of value in going to Berkeley as well. I think I learned a lot of things there. I was never, honestly, I think I learned more because I didn't really care about the rat race.
Sure.
And I just wanted to absorb everything I could. I didn't have any money to go to college, and they very kindly offered me a scholarship to study there. So it didn't cost me anything.
Beautiful.
And I learned so much. So I took every class I could. I took so many electives. And then I stayed an extra year. Yeah, I stayed an extra year auditing classes.
Okay.
Of like everything, some science stuff, some writing courses, literature, psychology, philosophy, world history. Like I just wanted to, especially general ed was very interesting to me.
You bet.
And we had some great professors, really, like some of the same people who teach at other big universities in the Boston area, like some people who teach at Harvard, some people from Northeastern, and some people from Boston
College.
Yeah, Boston College. Some of the other conservatives.
Yeah.
Conservatories.
Right. Yeah. Good
conservatories as well.
Yeah.
So there's a great community of people who teach in Boston. So it was great to have access to that. And I don't know. I didn't really think about the other stuff too much, because I didn't feel like it was that important. It was just it's like a few years of your life. You just learn what you can, get out. I didn't play into it too hard.
What was your intent? Because you moved right to Portland after that, right? So you got this.
But I mean, I got into the ensembles that I wanted and all that. It was never like, maybe I was also privileged because I had a certain level of music before I got in there.
Sure.
So it was never hard to navigate that, technically speaking. But I do, it was a challenge always. I like challenges. Maybe that's what it is too. I like a challenge.
It sounds like you do. No, I mean, it's great to have those, right? Because as you mentioned, you have to go through the darkness to get to the light. Those challenges definitely bring you to an appreciation of experiences.
But I'm also lucky that I can do that kind of thing, that I can go into a joust and maybe come out victorious. I mean, I'm lucky, It's not, some people don't have that impetus and don't have that, that desire. That doesn't mean they're not great people.
Sure.
You know what I mean? Like there's a certain, I think we put on a pedestal this idea of being self-reliant and like really tough, and I think it's kind of, almost like there's a joke, there's, we're just enamored with hierarchies, even being humble is almost a privilege, it's like, I get to be humble because I could not be and maybe get away with it. but
Mm.
that's kind of bullshit. Can I say
Right.
that on air? It's
Of course.
bullshit.
Yeah.
You can
You can
bleep
say
it
anything
out.
you want.
And it's kind of bullshit in the sense that, some people don't get to be humble. They may not have something to brag about, so we can't call them humble because it's not intentional.
Sure.
But that's kind of unfair, right? Um, so I don't know. I have mixed feelings about it, all kinds of things.
You
But
know what?
there's a joke. I don't know if you know this joke, that there's like a big, businessman comes to a temple of whatever religion you choose, and uh, bows down and says, "Oh God, I am nothing. I'm your humble servant. I'm just a cockroach. I'm just nothing compared to you." And then comes a, very powerful clergyman, and he says the same thing. "Oh, I'm also your humble servant. I am nothing. Here I am to give you all my respect and admiration." And then comes a poor man in rags and says, "Oh my God, I am your humble servant, and I am nothing." And the other two will look at each other and say, "Who does he think he is, coming here to say he's nothing?" You know,
Yeah, that's
that's humility can have that, double edge, and it makes me, yeah.
are you familiar with
Got to watch
dialect?
out for privilege everywhere.
Are you familiar with dialectics? Dialectical behavior therapy, and
Not as a behavior therapy. No,
okay,
I'm not familiar.
okay,
Tell
yeah.
me.
Oh, it just that was one of my growth points, right? Was that I went through like the 6-month program of emotion regulation and distress tolerance, and mindfulness was a huge thing for me. That while it's become a buzzword now, it's something that I really needed to work on. And interpersonal effectiveness. I felt like I was a great communicator, and I really do feel one of those things that I talk about with a lot of musicians on the show is that you can have the technical ability, all day long. You've got chops, but the ability to communicate with people, to be reliable, the hang is equally important as important, if not more, because if you're in any environment where you're playing with music with other people beyond just a solo artist, um, you're going to be with that person 24 hours a day, 7 days a week, sometimes on tour, and having patience and the ability to communicate in a respectful way, and not just impart your own, opinions. So at the risk of really harming that person's, like self-worth.
Yeah, right. Yeah, and sometimes you learn the hard way, right?
Sure.
But I that was one of my favorite things about being on the road. It's just the friendships that develop, and
Yeah.
that it's cool to be on stage and all that, I guess. I don't know. I have mixed feelings about being on stage. I kind of don't like stages,
Okay.
but I know that some things that are really magical can only happen on stages. So I
Right.
think there's a place for that. But I don't think it should be I don't think it should be the priority in art. I don't think art should be relinquished to just a place to focus attention and to get attention and to get applause. I think it's sad when that is the paramount consideration in art and music, and it's unfortunately becoming more that way.
Sure.
But I do, because art happens all the time. It happens in every conversation. It happens in, the creative spirit, which I think is fundamental to humanity, is present all the time. And in these conversations and friendship moments that happen on the road, there's so much give and take and so much sharing of our deepest feelings and revealing our, you
Very
know,
intimate.
humanity.
Yeah.
And so I think that is really, it's a beautiful thing, and you can learn so much from it.
It, uh, I thought a little bit about some of the music, that I talked to you about before we recorded this. This most recent single that you came out with, "If I Ever Fall in Love with You," uh, and it is a very intimate song. It's a beautiful song, and showcases your songwriting, but also your just I think your empathetic, connected side. And so, would you consider yourself a romantic?
think so. I mean, I'm not sure what that means to you, but I do like I do like what happened with the romantic period in music, if
Yeah,
that's what you mean. You know, like where we abandon where we consider that the irrational. There was a lot of that happening at that time. You know, people exploring the irrational and the unconscious, or the things that were not easily categorized as
sure.
primary to artistic creation and to life in general. And I think that's a really interesting move. And it's very I'm yeah I like to be aware of that as much as possible. I like to let those things into my creative process, because I don't think there's a creative process without them. I
Sure.
think the idea that things could be controlled uh, just through reasoning was a myth. I think even people like Bach were ultimately creating subconsciously. I think romantics have been there all along. They all creatives are romantics. They just didn't know it, you know.
Right.
So I really think so, yeah. And also with love, I see all these platforms trying to parcel out, the perfect connection between people and all this stuff. And you can try, but I think love is much more of a rebellious force than that. It just does what it does.
That's
It's like
beautiful.
water, and I think that's why a lot of power structures try to control it and
Mm,
segment and regulate it.
sure.
Like how long did it take gay rights?
Oh,
Like
right.
like
I
what's that
mean,
about?
how long
Why
has
do you
it
need to
taken?
tell
I mean,
other people? Why do you need to tell people who to love? Like, why does the power structure have to tell people who they can love and who they can't? There's something
that
really
statement
insidious
is
there.
that
You know,
that statement sounds like it's already, you know, it's already established. I mean, how long has it taken and still is
yeah,
going, right? I mean,
and
that
still going. Of course, yeah.
unbelievable to me.
It's an ongoing battle because
Yeah,
it's the ultimate. It's the ultimate uh, force that undoes power. I think
sure.
love is like when people say love, not war. It's not. They may say it as a cliche. They don't realize. I don't think most people realize just how powerful that statement is and how powerful it can be if realized, if
Right.
if truly understood.
If
You know, love does not care who's in charge.
it's not
It does
discriminate.
not. It does not care. You can
Yeah.
try. It doesn't care.
Right.
And here we are.
That's I love these perspectives. I would love if you wouldn't mind at your choosing. I'd really love to hear you perform a song if you wouldn't mind, and it can be on topic that way, or you can pick from whatever you like. I know that you mentioned the studio's packed up. If you wanted to just play a little guitar and do some singing, I would really, really love to hear Martin Zarzar's interpretation of art here.
All right. Well, let's see. Let me think of what I could play. I got my guitar right here. It might be out of tune.
Gorgeous. Well, tuning's overrated.
Well,
That's what I tell my guitarist so he
maybe if
doesn't
you're
feel
not
bad.
singing, but if you're singing, gosh, it's hard. It's out of tune. Trying to think of what I can play that's in the spirit of what we're talking about.
And it doesn't necessarily have to be, because I think everything that I've played of yours is vastly different in a lot of respects. You've got several different styles from several different um, origins, and so I think whatever speaks to you at this moment would be really fun.
Well, one thing that since we're talking about kids and the narratives that underpin our values and all of that, and maybe I'm pushing the envelope, or maybe I'm kind of manipulating the conversation to my ends, but I kind of got stuck on that idea a little while back, and there's a song that I wrote that's called "The Storyteller," and I dedicated this to a good friend of mine, Will Horniak, who's an amazing storyteller, and he helped me see through his performances just how just how important stories are to people. And also to not, the fact that the stories that he tells are all fiction, to not be so stuck on literal truth. Literal truth is very hard to pin down. It's good. It's, you know, I think it's the realm of science and mathematics and all those things. But for all human stuff, we live with stories that we kind of use a shorthand way to kind of make sense out of our own lives. But anyway, my inspiration was Will Horniak's stories, and my hope with this is that I wanted to create more of a glue between generations. I grew up in a very large family with a lot of relatives, a lot of distant relatives. Many were very old, and you know, a lot of the things that I learned early on in childhood were because I was around a lot of old people. And I think that also taught me a lot about well, it gave me a lot of tools.
Sure.
Okay, I don't want to say that I learned so much and I'm more, you know, I'm wiser than anyone else, because I don't feel like I am. But a lot of the things that these old people gave me were really instrumental in helping me navigate my own life as a young person.
I love it.
And so I was hoping that this song would bring generations together through storytelling. So I proposed this as an initiative for schools, and I'm still working on that. So I don't know, maybe if you don't mind promoting this agenda for me,
Absolutely.
I'd like to play this song.
So this song is called The Storyteller?
Called The Storyteller.
Beautiful. Well, yeah, take it away, my friend.
All right. Come gather round and I'll tell you a story of heroes and maidens and more. I'll even throw in a troll for good measure. We'll bury a treasure somewhere. Let me paint upon your reverie a landscape you can close your eyes and see. Sit close to me by the light of the fire and watch the smoke rising up high. I've got no picture, so pay close attention. Your imagination is key. We'll travel together in harmony to a place where you can close your eyes and see. Oh, the centuries come and go. You can live 1,000 lives through the stories that you know. If you should ask what I want in return, well, it's more than your money can buy. I can assure you the price is quite steep, but I think you will see that it's fair. Live a life worth telling stories of to children who will close their eyes and see. Oh, the centuries come and go. You can live 1,000 lives through the stories that you know. Oh, the centuries come and go. You can live 1,000 lives through the stories that you know. through the stories that you know.
Wow, that is beautiful, man. That is fantastic. You yeah, I feel like one of those
Thank you,
children.
man.
That was one of those children absorbing your stories, man. This is that's how fortunate is
We're
your
all children, right? Inside.
I definitely feel that way. I think when we stop trying to learn, then we lose that innocence and ability to learn from the world. I know that you've got the experience of you're heading back east and you're going to be doing this work in May. Uh, I'll be learning from the Europeans again this next month and a half, and I'm so grateful. More so, I feel like just the time that you and I've gotten a chance to just chat, uh, so much more. I want to know about you. I would love if you'd ever be up for it to have a part two where we can maybe look back on this day. Right now the world is in kind of a strange place that the Ukrainians are really putting up a valiant fight to keep their country. And I would be curious if you'd be up for maybe revisiting a bit down the road and looking at the changes in the world, maybe see if our perspectives are different, and
I'll meet you in Ukraine. Let's go.
let's do it.
I
How
mean,
be it?
I'm so tempted to take the next flight over and help.
That would be
I
beautiful.
don't. I mean, I can't imagine what they're going through right now. It's
So,
just horrible.
are you that okay? Because it sounds like we have some more similarities there.
I mean, I have nothing against the people of Russia. I think
of course not.
they're being led and stifled by a very terrible person.
Okay, so you've probably experienced the same thing that I have, that when you go to different countries, whether you're in Southeast Asia, you're in Europe, and the opinion about Americans has oftentimes been swayed by a couple of people that give Americans a bad view, or maybe politicians that have given, America a bad name. And so for me, I did damage control a lot of times. I'd say, look, I would show them my hand and say that, I feel like I'm one of you, just because I was born in a different area. We're hardworking, loving, kind people.
Mm-hmm.
And I love developing friendships and relationships overseas. So your comment, about Russians, and this is a conversation I've had with my sons, is that you're going to hear that rhetoric, right? That Russians are bad. If you were to go to Eastern Europe, you may hear that Americans are just such douchebags, right? And yeah, there are some American douchebags, of course. There are dirtbags in every culture. But
Yeah.
how's your experience with that? Your perspective?
I think you're totally right. I mean, there's always somebody who can tarnish the reputation of a whole group of people if that's all they're ever exposed to.
Sure.
Um, Unfortunately, a lot of those people have very prominent roles, and they get to represent, and they are the face of a nation when maybe they shouldn't be.
Right.
Um, so now, I remember when I was in grade school. I was in middle school actually, and well, the equivalent of middle school because I was in Peru, and one of my teachers told me that wherever you go, you're an ambassador always. Everyone you talk to, you are an ambassador for the people that you might be associated with, that other people might think you're part of a group. So you always need to carry yourself well. Always, like, don't ever not do your job as an ambassador. Like, she was really adamant about this stuff, and she just again, pearls of wisdom. And I
Absolutely.
think that has, I don't know if I've always done a good job, but I've never forgotten that. And as far as I have tried, that's been part of the mantra. Also, playing in Pink Martini was a reminder of that, because
Okay.
they took their role as ambassadors, very explicitly, actually. I
Sure.
remember Thomas talking about this, and how important it was to give a different perspective, especially because of being from the United States.
Yeah.
And it was a very important part of the band to represent a different aspect from what other people might see in the media
Sure.
or in politics as to what it means to be American. So I think there are people who are very self-aware and really trying to do, like you just described a similar position. So I think now that you're ready to go on tour, I'm sure you will not reinforce the stereotype. You know what I
Uh,
mean?
I absolutely adore, making connections with people there that are long lasting, and maybe it doesn't really matter to me that I give that impression about Americans so much as just decency, carrying decency outward, because let's face it, I mean, the last 2 years, there's not a person on the planet that hasn't been touched by the pandemic, right? And
Hmm.
that's the one common thing that everyone has had to deal with. It doesn't matter what culture, or, power class, or anything. They've been exposed to the real damaging parts of this pandemic. But they also, I've noticed, that people are pretty self-absorbed, and oftentimes, right, it's desperation. And I feel like leading, you may laugh, my absolute hero in one respect, I've got several that I feel like I hold reverence towards their positions, so if it's, like Mother Teresa or Gandhi or any of these people that actually were all, they were unconditionally loving. I went to Thailand and spent time with monks there that I was so fascinated by, because their entire life was dedicated to kindness and unconditional love. And a sort of a more local level, Mr. Rogers was like hero to me, right? Because I felt like the guy could look at all of the people that were completely different from him, and he got a rap for being such a, like, because he was so close and connected with kids, people would give him, this rap about being a pedophile or whatever, because he was so, connected with them. And it bothered me, because this guy was teaching full acceptance, of any different, whether it be race or sexuality or, the color of their hair, or it didn't matter. And so I talked about these being like base camps. Like if Gandhi's Everest, Mr. Rogers is some base camp along the way, and I want to aim in that trajectory towards that. If I keep that mindset when I'm out there, then at least that's the progress, if not perfection, right? That I can get to, that I can make tomorrow better than I was yesterday. And when we're out playing music, bring that energy and that kindness and beauty out there that can be expressive and make people feel good, So, it, man, I feel like I'm talking too much, but I got to tell you, man, that you talked about commerce before at the beginning, right? We talked about the value of perceived value of certain, currencies. And there, you've probably heard this saying, but Jim Carrey, the comedian, had given some commencement speech to these marketing students in Stanford years ago. And just as they're graduating, right, their whole idea behind marketing is get out there and make money, right? It's sell and pitch. And he said, don't forget that the effect you have on others is the greatest form of currency there is. And like all these students that are looking around saying,
I
wait a
agree.
minute, it's not what we studied for 4 years or 8 years. But to me, I took that and really built my entire sort of being around that. And for me, it's really important to carry that. And so
Right, right.
I see that in you too. I really
Well,
do.
Kevin, I think that it's a really important button to put our fingers on often. The idea where value resides, and I think even the phrase is very misleading when we talk about making money. Uh, money isn't made unless it's being printed or put into a server. That's how you make money, but it's otherwise taken. Money's taken. It's taken from one person to another.
Mhm.
It's given or taken. You don't make money, you take it from
Sure.
others. We're winners and losers. It's a horrible thing if that's the only aspect of it. Money is not a nice thing when the only transaction is to take it. But the people who make value are creative people.
Mhm.
Are ultimate the ultimate currency is solidarity and kindness. I think that's the currency that really is going to get us out of trouble. Um,
Absolutely.
on the other side, you have what how value is created is usually through culture and creativity, um, and then how things are paid out. That's where it gets contentious. Who gets to have the checking account, who gets the actual number. That's where the contention begins, and that's usually where you take money, not make money. It was already made by creative people without any consideration of being wealthy, and then other people came and took it. That's generally what happens. I think maybe I'm going in too far with it, but
No, I love
um,
it. I
I,
like,
I'm not against money. I think money can be very useful, but we have to always remember where the value resides.
yeah.
Is it's money is not that different from cryptocurrency in the sense that it's all based on trust and faith,
It's
you know,
perceived value,
and
you know?
perceived value. So it's not
Yeah.
that different. So there's not, in that sense, cryptocurrency is not new. It's just that there's no central bank regulating the interest rates, but soon there will be. There
Sure.
probably will be a way to regulate interest. They were already seeing it with staking and all these
Hmm.
things. So it'll catch up soon.
I think so.
But the ultimate question is, what do we value
Yeah.
in human life, and how can we bring those two things together for everyone's benefit, instead of you know propping up these tyrants, and it's just
Yeah.
so ugly. It gets so ugly,
It
but it
does,
gets
buddy.
I
I,
don't
but
know if that answers your question.
well, you know what? The
Did I
thing
digress
is,
too much?
as your son grows, right, and he starts to ask these questions, I love the fact that you promote curiosity and their opportunities, right? Those are the moments where you have the opportunities to talk to him about your perspective, and he's really fortunate to have someone in his life that will talk to him straight. You're not going to sugarcoat anything, but you'll also help him understand where he can place value in a healthy way, and strive to be a value himself. A lot of times kids go through that struggle because they don't see the value in themselves, right? Like school makes it really difficult to take pride in yourself and have self-worth. And a lot of that impact that the bullies kind of have does stay with them for a long time, and so I think it's really cool that he's got an opportunity to find value early on. When we
I,
do,
I hope so.
if you're hip to taking that, like a revisit down the road sometime soon, we can look back and see hopefully a peaceful resolution to kind of what's happened overseas. There's always
Yeah,
going to be conflict, but I'd love to be able to look at, that's my silver lining, right, is to hope that
yeah,
with the solidarity that's coming through with other countries, that we can find peaceful resolution. And
right. I
at this,
mean, how can we find a way in which it's not always about winners and losers?
yeah,
We can do so much when there are so many contests, or not, not contests, but the conflict doesn't always mean that the resolution leaves winners and losers.
sure,
Sometimes conflict can result in everybody winning. It's just a question of where we put the emphasis.
sure,
Like why, I don't want the people of Russia to be negatively impacted by losing a war, an invasion against Ukraine. I mean, because they're not the ones doing it.
right,
And even if they were, like, what's the point of losing, of having people lose something? I just think that we could always have the betterment, just learning, like aim for learning, aim
yeah,
for understanding. And yeah, there's always a price to pay when you got bad leadership, and people will suffer, and people in Ukraine will lose their lives, and it's incredibly horrible. Um, but I think good conscience can prevail, and hopefully people have heard enough, kept their ears open through their lives to not just follow orders
Yeah,
when they're not right.
absolutely.
You know, and
Yeah,
you know, I don't like to resolve everything in terms of winning and losing.
I think that's a beautiful
That
thing.
that's such a snapshot, you know. It's not like that. Life goes on even
Yeah.
after you've won and lost.
Well,
It keeps going.
yeah, I mean, it really, there is no real resolution that way. You know, I mean, if there's a winner and a loser, there's resentments, there's, you know, there's a lot of strife and struggle that happens
Yeah,
after that. But if
it
there's
can go on for thousands of years. You know, I mean,
which is
is this are we starting a new? Is
right,
this something that's going to go on for the next 1,000 years, like some other conflicts in the world, or
right.
thousands? Like what, you know, what are we getting? What are we trying to do here? You know, what's, you know, one. I mean, this is like one bully can ruin it for everyone.
That's the
And it's
truth.
happened so many times.
So
It's
many.
happened
You would
so
think,
many.
let's hope that one lesson gets learned. But so that's my
I'd give
hope.
him, if I could, I'd give him a hug. He'd probably kill me.
Yeah, I
But
probably
imagine that,
would.
like, you know, I would go and give him a hug, and he'd shoot me. Like
Yeah,
that is, like that's how
the ultimate
different
irony.
values can be. You know,
That's the truth. I'm a hugger
it's
too,
bizarre.
buddy. I am, man. But that, yeah, you know, the 23-second hug, is that what it is? Or 21-second hug is supposed
Oh,
to
is that
be.
right?
I think, yeah, if you hug heart to heart for like, I think it's 21 or 23 seconds, that's the point at which your the rhythm of your heart kind of slows and the apprehensions drop, and you can actually just make some connectivity with someone. So if you can make it 23 seconds with Putin, I, you know, I'd love to see that happen.
I
But
mean, you know,
I'm sending you a hug from here, though. I am, man. This has
hey,
been
likewise.
a real
You know,
gift to
we
get the
got
chance.
we got to learn to forgive and also not forget. You know,
Yeah, absolutely.
and
Uh,
it's hard.
when's the next time performing?
Well, I think this thing coming up in May is the next official one.
Okay.
The things have sort of slowed down because of COVID. I stopped taking a lot of public things, not because I now I can't. You know, obviously things are open mostly again, and
Hmm.
I've been doing some gigs, but it was just such an uphill battle that I stopped organizing self-produced things for my music. So I've been doing
Sure.
other gigs with other people. But my next thing for Martin ZARZAR is going to be in May in Washington, D.C.
Beautiful.
And after that, we'll see. We'll see. I want to do a record release for the song that you were talking
Yeah.
about. With I'm putting out an album that's all, you know, that kind of, whatever that kind is. I would, pop music, rock and roll.
Yeah.
I don't know what you call it, but I have a bunch of songs in that vein. Actually, most of my songs are that way. It's just that
Wow.
that's not what people know me for. But
Right. Yeah. It's completely
I want to
different.
make that more a thing because I really love that sound.
I'm going to imagine that both the May event and other things that you'll come out with then are going to
Maybe
be,
we could play together for
I
something.
will,
That'd be
I
fun.
would give anything for that. You bet.
I
And maybe
love it.
Edgar Allan Pug could come in and sing backups. Right.
Hey,
Yeah. But
great.
I would imagine you can find all that info at
Um,
martinzarzar.com.
yes,
Okay.
martinzarzar.com. Things get posted there. Uh, so yeah,
I
you
love it.
can, or social media. You can find me on Facebook. You know, the Meta, as it's called now,
Right.
and what you would call it. You know, Instagram, music platforms. I think there's you know, a lot of the music platforms have options for calendars and stuff. I haven't accessed them yet, but I
Okay.
will shortly try to be posting on there as well.
Okay.
So
Well,
things keep evolving. I gotta keep adapting.
I will have at least all those links available. If you want to,
Oh, the
yeah,
YouTube channel. I'm gonna be doing a weekly live show on YouTube
really,
on my
okay.
YouTube channel.
And that
It's
link,
just my name. Just
I
look me
bet
up.
we can find you, yeah, through searching YouTube, or I'll make sure that I've got all those links. If you guys got here late and you want to go back to the beginning of this, please do. You'll see this archived as well as every other interview that we've done at accesskevin.com. So check it out. Please subscribe. Go out there and find Martin Zarzar's music. It's beautiful. It's worldly, and this guy is. He's somebody that I think could bring some light to your life if it seems dark right now. So it has to me. I totally appreciate this time, buddy. It's been a gift.
Kevin, thank you so much. It's been a pleasure.